Grr, I'm a badger.
Hey everyone, it is the Angry Honey Badger here, and it is time to take a look at another champion build video. Today we will be playing as Yasuo in the mid lane. And what we're going to do today in this video is talk about a little bit of everything that you might need to know if you're looking to start playing Yasuo, or if you're just looking to get back into Yasuo if you maybe played him a little bit. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about his abilities, we're going to talk about his items that you want to build on him, we're going to talk about the pros and the cons to Yasuo, along with his masteries and his runes, and just some synergies and all types of stuff. Just kind of a basic overview, build and guide for Yasuo. So starting off in this video, what we want to do is talk about his abilities so we know what those do as the player as this game continues. So starting off, we'll start with his passive, which is the Way of the Wanderer. First part of it is his intent, where Yasuo's crit strike chance is doubled, but because of that, his damage dealt by critical strikes is reduced by 10%. So you build 50 crit chance, you'll have 100, which is nice, but it's reduced by 10%. We'll talk about this a little bit more in depth as we build items. Then his resolve is every bit you move around, the faster you move, the more flow you get when it fills the meter. When it's full, when it activates by being hit by damage from either champions or monsters, you're going to get a shield, which is pretty nice. And it allows you to exchange in lane quite well, so it's very helpful against pokey mages, and so is his mobility. But we'll also talk about more of this as the video continues. So that's your passive. At level 1, you typically want to put a point into your Q, which is your Steel Tempest. Now, I'm going to try to go through this fairly quick, but if you need to pause the video right here with all of these words, you can do that and just read it. It's very helpful. I might not cover all of it because it's long. First and second cast, Yasuo thrusts forward with his sword, dealing damage to champions, physical damage, in fact, in a straight line. Successfully landing these will grant you Gathering Storm attacks for up to 10 seconds. Now, Gathering Storm is what you can do after you cast this twice. You can then knock people up with that wind. Here we're going to get into a little fight. If Vi lands her Q, that's a knock-up, which is, and we can go in and pick up a quick kill with the Q as he tries to run off. He had a good knock-up, though. I'll give him that. That was good. He actually plays decent knock-up games with his Yasuo. But yeah, then third cast, the third strike of Gathering Storm causes Steel Tempest to send out the wind. That's what I was talking about. It travels in a line up to 900 range and sends enemies caught airborne in the whirlwind, deals damage to them as well. This allows you then ult off of them because you can only use your ultimate when people are knocked up into the air. Yeah, there's a little bit more to that as well. Steel Tempest can critically strike and apply on-hit effects as well within its range, so you can remember that as well. There, you did a good job actually knocking me up. I forgot to completely block it. That was my bad. But here we got Vi coming back in. There's the ult. There comes my ult because of the knock-up. She'll be able to pick up the kill too with a quick E on Vi. I don't even think I can remember what it's called, but that's her E. And yeah, good teamwork really happening there, and good synergy really. So that is your Q ability. That's your Steel Tempest. We talked about that. Now typically you're gonna probably max this out first. Once you start getting Yasuo down really well though, you might actually start maxing out your Sweeping Blade a little bit more in lane because you can deal a lot of damage with it. I'll talk about that in a second. But at level 2 we actually put a point into our Sweeping Blade. Yasuo dashes a fixed distance through enemies, dealing damage to them. If Yasuo uses Sweeping Blade multiple times in succession, the ability deals extra damage, which is also nice, to a bonus maximum of 50%. Sweeping Blade is cast on target. The target will be marked for a few seconds, which means you can't go through them over and over and over and over because that would just be ridiculous. You just keep dashing through them as they ran away. So you have to use minions and whatever monsters you want to in lane to continuously keep moving forward and keep, you know, dashing around, keeping that damage up, and just using it for the mobility aspect as well. So it takes a little bit to get used to, but it's not too bad. Typically max this out second unless you did what I talked about where you can put more points in this early because you want to deal damage using it in lane. Then at level 3, you put a point into your wind wall, which we all know is your giant wind wall. It blocks projectiles. It's helpful for saving your teammates, saving your towers, and blocking spells and effects and all that fun stuff. Not really spells, but, you know, all of the abilities. That's your wind wall. Here I'm moving up to top lane because Aurelia apparently is getting bullied out of her lane so bad that she can't even tell us anything in chat and just thinks her lane is now mid, which is whatever. We'll go top. We'll just play safe. We'll play smart, and we'll do some work in a second to Rise, who's currently super fed. Then our ultimate is our last breath. Obviously, when you gain the max flow and you knock people up, you can teleport to nearby enemies, deal damage to them within the 400 radius to target. So we'll be knocked up for 1 second, dealing damage to them. Then once you land, Yasuo gains 50% armor penetration against the enemy and bonus armor for 15 seconds. Here, Rise gets greedy, and I have flow, which means we can knock him up and do a last breath, which we do. We ignite him as well and hit him a few times, deal a little bit of damage. He will flash away. Now, he is going to remain low in lane while we chug down a health pot and standard attack just a tiny bit. And here, we're just going to flash, do the quick swipe, and Q, and take him out for sticking around. So, That is a smart play by me, kind of, to pick up the kill on him. We get the shutdown gold, very helpful. And then he should have backed. But he was feeling confident. He'd been crushing us. He was 4-0 at the time. So I don't really blame him either. But those are your abilities that we just went over. Now we can talk about the build a little bit, because we've been starting to get a little bit more in-depth with the build. The first main item you really want to finish when playing Yasuo is the Statikk Shiv. It's a very big power buff, or it's just a big damage spike, really, for a few reasons. You get the attack speed, which is helpful. You get the 20 crit chance, which actually is 40 because of your passive, so 40% critical strikes, helpful. And you get the movement speed. You also get the Statikk Shiv charges, which does that damage as well. Very, very helpful first item. We don't even have boots. We don't even have to super worry about that early, because that movement speed is pretty helpful. It's like having boots 1, really. So not super worried about it right off the bat. So Statikk Shiv is a big power spike indeed. The second item we really want to build is what we're working on next, as you can see. Well, kind of. We have two parts. Here we're going to move in. There's a knock-up. There's the ultimate follow-up. We'll pick up an assist. We get a lot of assists this game for some reason. I don't know. I don't know if the team's just super KSy, but whatever. As long as people die and we win the game, I don't really care. So that is what we're working on. We got the Statikk Shiv. Then we're going to continue to work towards our next main item, which would be the Infinity Edge. Now, in the meantime of not having the Infinity Edge, we picked up that Vampiric Scepter, which is going to be helpful sustain in lane, and we'll eventually be building into another item. We'll talk about order and how this works in just a second as we get further on into the build and the items, but we don't really have to worry about finishing off that Vampiric Scepter fully right away, because there's two conditions for that. We'll talk about them in just a second. But before we talk about those, let's talk about Masteries and Runes real quick, because they're pretty simple to cover. For the Masteries, we go with the 2190 page. 21 in the offense. There's a picture of it. That should be on the screen right now. While we jump over to help save Sona / while she KS's once again. Same thing with Vi. No kills for me, whatever. We're still going to win the game. But that is the 21-9. 21 in the offense. Lots of damage is really all you want for Yasuo. You want the damage. That's really all you're going for. And then you want 9 in the defense. Just helpful. Have a little bit of defense. That's all. Now, as for your runes, what I like to take is attack damage marks, attack damage quintessences, either armor or health seals, and then magic resist per level glyphs. Those are helpful. Now, if you want to run one crit strike mark, it's not easy to say for some reason. If you want to run one, that'll give you 2% crit chance early on, and if you crit somebody in lane, that might scare them into thinking you have a crit page. It's pretty funny. You basically sacrifice 1 physical damage for 2% crit chance. It's up to you. It's kind of funny to run. Try it out. But those are your runes. They're very helpful. All that's also in the description. Here, Rise goes deep. Too deep. We will save the carry he's trying to murder, and we will actually pick up a kill, which is helpful. Now here, we have our flow. We can knock up, at least go in hard, pick up the kill quick. Unfortunately, we're going to get locked down, then we get knocked over, and then pathing. I didn't want to go that direction, but that's going to get it killed, whatever. And, yeah, a little bit. That's going to happen. So, now that we are dead, I believe we're going to finish off our Infinity Edge. So, Statikk Shiv, Infinity Edge, and we finished off our boots, with which we went with Merc Treads, because you really want those. You want the magic resist, because typically against all those mages, you'll be going up against mid. You'll want a little magic resist. It's helpful to pick some up there. And then the tenacity is also very helpful, just so you don't get locked down for quite as long, because your mobility is fairly important for you in team fights, in case you were wondering. It's very nice to have. Now, let's talk a tiny bit about synergies and then itemization. So synergies with Yasuo, we're running Vi. My buddy was going to play Vi, so I was like, I'm going to play Yasuo. That's easy knockups for days. Your Q's a knockup, your ult's a knockup. That's double whammy. And you knock people aside when you use your ults. If you hit a bunch, I'm knocking up a bunch too with my ultimate, and I'm hitting everybody, and it's going to hurt. So that's kind of a wombo combo. Anything that is a knockup in the game will work for Yasuo's ultimate. So besides the obvious knockups that he can do himself, other good knockups, Blitzcrank has knockups. Technically, the pole is the pole knockup. I think the pole is a knockup, and so is his fist, double fist or whatever. That is also a knockup. Thresh, Flay is a knockup, and then his death sentence is a knockup. Just on his ultimate that knocks everybody back, that's a knockup. Draven's, even just his blades that get people to bounce apart from each other if you hit him with it, that's a knockup. So there's tons of knockups in the game. Probably two of the best ones, in my opinion, are Vi. off the top of my head, and Malphite is a huge one as well. But basically, anybody with knockup, super helpful. Maokai, he's got knockup, super fun. Tons of good synergies. There's a million, really. There's more than what I've even listed. There's actually a lot of knockups in the game. So all those synergies are great. Wukong's another huge one I totally forgot about for a second. So yes, anybody like that on your team, you're going to have a good time ulting. It's just a lot easier. I mean, obviously you can do it yourself, but it's just so easy to come in out of nowhere once everybody gets thrown up into the air. So those are some champions you might want to have your friends play if you're looking to be doing work with Yasuo. Then, as for itemization, now that we're going back to base, we've started building and actually finished off. We had our first 3 main core items, our boots, our static, and our infinity edge. And then we had the vampiric scepter. Now, if you were just completely crushing people, there's a kill. If you're just completely crushing, just not even dying, not worried about their damage, we have to worry about their damage. They're actually putting out a fair bit of it. You can go straight and take that vampiric scepter and build it into a Blade of the Ruined King. Very awesome item, even more attack speed, great damage too dealt to the enemy champions, and you can use its active too really well in fights to help not only save your life but slow people and kill them as well. And then if you are worried, like I am, about their damage a little bit this game, you want to itemize towards the damage that is becoming a menace. So against this enemy team, I'm really worried more so about their magic damage. For a few reasons. A, their Tristana is building a Hurricane, which is a terrible item. And then, I don't want to argue about that now, but I know somebody just disagreed with me. And then, Yasuo on the enemy team, he did the old school Triforce, Yumu's build, which is just not good, to be honest. You got to build the Infinity Edge much sooner than that to have a legitimately big team effect damage spike. So he's missing out there. It kind of shows in his score too, because he didn't do half bad at knocking me up and doing damage in lane. He just doesn't have damage for team fights or anything else. So it's not helpful. So what you would do is you'd itemize towards the damage you're worried about. So their APs are doing great on their team. Ryze has damage, Swain has some major damage, and Elise always has damage. She actually is building a decent amount of penetration as well. So we went and got the Banshee's Veil. Very helpful. If it would have been the other way around, they had a full AD team, we'd want to pick up the Omen right away, or fairly soon after those 2 main power spike items on our team. So very helpful for us to pick up those defensive items. Yasuo really only needs 3-ish attack damage items to really get the job done. You don't need tons of attack damage because you have so much through crit and so much through other damage that you're not too worried about it. So between the 3 damage items we have right now, our boots and our Banshee's Veil, we're off to we're in a really solid spot at this point. And in a second, we actually have enough gold to finish off our Omen, but we just don't go back and get it. But typically I'd finish off with an Omen because the health and the armor is going to make you a lot bigger too. That's a lot of health on top of the health that you're going to be getting from Banshee's Veil as well. So those are really the items that you're going to want to pick up. Now, if for some reason you really didn't want to get one of those 2 tankier items because they have a ton, like just absolutely super tank team, you might want to pick up a Last Whisper. That's also a fair call. You know, there's a few other items you could kind of throw in there, you know, Guardian Angel, whenever you really want to try to do that. It's, you know, it's kind of a gamble item because of how its passive works, but you can try that out. That does work too. Get into a fair bit of fights in base. This game will be ending soon. There's double kill. We're finally getting kills. At this point, once you get those 3 items, though, the damage really does start to come through. Even those 2 I had were really helpful. We just needed some kind of sustain in lane. You can't just ignore damage on the enemy team unless you have like super coordinated LCS team style work and you are like the carry and they legitimately respect that and you're getting, you know, peel and all of that. So you have to address that a little bit. But here, at the end of the game, you can see what Yasuo can do once he is up to this point and he has his 3 main items. We're going to get into a bit of a fight in a second that goes quite handsomely for me, to say the least. Here we're actually going to go back and get the Omen. And we're like, nah, this game's going to be done anyways, whatever. And once the turrets fall, then we can start to get into fights. So let's fight. Come on, enemy team, where are you? Respawn. But yeah, that's the build. Really, I think we covered everything quite handsomely. Oh, pros and cons. We didn't do too well on this, but high skill cap, no mana, super helpful stuff there. His low, basically worthless without items. But once you get items, we can see here, you have a lot of damage to get, and there's pretty much a triple kill. But yeah, hard to master, But once you get a hang of him, he becomes really, really good. But that's a build for Yasuo. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, and we'll just see all of you guys in the next build video. That's what we're going to do. Here we're going to peel Katarina off the team with the Monsoon. We were basically waiting for that, which he was going to come in. Our LeBlanc is going to pick that kill up, which is pretty big for us, and that can help us re-engage. We get the